So the next article I wanted to look at is titled Hate Pastor. Sure, I predicted Trump's win, but I didn't say God agreed. This is by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website, so let's give it a read and see what it has to say. Christian hate preacher Greg Locke, yeah, I'm not done with him yet, apparently spent part of his sermon on Sunday defending his predictions that Donald Trump would be re-elected president. In short, his predictions aren't like those idiot prophets' predictions because he never said God agreed with him. But also he claims he's still right about Trump winning because MAGA. There's a video that goes with this, so let me pull it up and let's give it a watch.
Now what's floating around on the internet is all of these people that, let me use the word loosely, prophesied that Trump was going to remain in the presidency for the remaining 4 years. Now they're all being called false prophets, and so here's what they're doing. Now they're sending out these letters and these statements saying, well, somehow or another, we got it wrong, which, by the way, they're going to feel very, very stupid in a couple of weeks.
Honestly, I love that he says they're going to feel very, very stupid in a couple of weeks because this guy should feel very, very stupid right now. The date is relevant for this video. Right now, it's January 17th, 2021. Remember that date because it's going to be relevant in a minute. He is talking shit about pastors who prophesied that Trump would be president for the full 8 years, for the full 2 terms that a president can possibly get. When he says that, the first person that comes to mind to me is Kat Kerr. She made so many claims that Trump was going to do this and Trump was going to do that. Once one path to victory closed for Trump, she would predict another path was going to open. She did that for a solid 2.5 months. The entire time, from probably mid-July, I think she started predicting that he was going to win. At least, maybe even the beginning of the campaign. All the way through to now. And now she's freaking out and has to admit that she was wrong. She kept redefining words. Well, you know, God told me that it was going to be a landslide in Trump's favor. But that was my mistake. You know, you guys didn't know what the word landslide meant. What it actually means is blah. She kept redefining shit like that to try to make it seem like she wasn't completely full of shit. And that's what Greg Locke is starting to notice here. That apparently people spoke presumptuously in God's name, claiming that God told them that Trump was going to be president for the next 4 years. Now, like I said, this is January 17th. There is really no denying at this point. What route do you take? There is no path to victory for Trump. No path. He cannot win at this point. His last path to victory, which wasn't even a path to victory, was January 6th. And when he saw that was going downhill, he inspired a mob to riot and attack the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. So at this point, Trump has no path to victory. Never did, honestly. What does old Greg Locke have to say about that?
So let me just say something. If you go back and watch every video from this platform or any video that I've done, even the one from the tree that I shared a couple of months ago or a month and a half ago about the dream, you will notate that I am very careful not to say the word of the Lord told me to tell you that Donald Trump is going to remain the president for the next 4 years. I have said I have good authority. I believe with all of my heart. I am 1,010% confident. But never one time did I say that Donald Trump is going to remain the president because the Lord told me that he was. Now, I may have a strong opinion on...
Okay, let's just pause here for a second. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that he is telling me that he never said, the Lord said Trump would be president for the next 4 years. It seems like something that he would have done, right? But just for the sake of argument, let's just be super generous and extra good faith. Even though it's not deserved, let's do it. Let's be extra good faith in this situation. And let's assume that he's telling the truth, that he never claimed that God told him that Trump would be president for the next 4 years. Let's keep listening.
I may have a strong opinion on that, but I've been careful not to willy-nilly use those phrases because when God tells me something, I want to make sure that God told me that something. Now, that being said, I'm not trying to backpedal because there is one conspiracy theory in the world right now and only one. The real conspiracy theory are the foolish people that think Joe Biden is actually going to be the president of the United States on January the 20th. You have lost your mind if you believe that.
Okay. So he's saying that God, he never claimed that God told him Trump would be president for the next 4 years. But you are engaging in conspiracy theory if you think that Biden is going to be president for the next 4 years. Isn't that interesting? This is a type of propaganda where he's trying to flip the narrative, trying to flip things around and gaslight you and make you feel like you are a fool and delusional for believing in something other than what he is presenting to you right here and now. They tend to do this a lot. This is a popular form of political propaganda. Not just political, but it's a popular form of propaganda, generally speaking. Let's keep reading the article. This is a quote from the video we just watched. Now they're sending out these letters and these statements saying, well, somehow or another we got it wrong, which, by the way, they're going to feel very, very stupid in a couple of weeks. I'm very careful not to say the word of the Lord told me to tell you that Donald Trump is going to remain the president for the next 4 years. But never one time did I say that Trump is going to remain the president because the Lord told me that he was. That being said, I'm not trying to backpedal because there's one conspiracy in the world right now, and only one. I think there are a few more than that, old buddy. The real conspiracy theory are the foolish people that think Joe Biden is actually going to be the president of the United States on January 20th. You've lost your mind if you believe that. This is Hemant Mehta speaking. I can't tell if he just backpedaled or flipped the bike over. That's funny. The same guy who spent months saying with absolute confidence that Trump would win can't admit he's wrong, so he's trying to salvage his failed predictions by saying they carry slightly less weight because he didn't precede them with the religious form of Simon Says. This Christian doesn't apologize. He just gets louder and assumes that's a fair substitute. He also doesn't ever admit when he's wrong. That's another key to propagandizing and being the leader of a cult. When you're wrong, you don't talk about it anymore. You just move on and pretend it never happened. That's why people in high places in government, like Trump, for example, don't face accountability. He does something really, really fucked up, and everybody's really unhappy about it, like, for example, gassing protesters at Lafayette Square, or sending the military into U.S. cities with bayonets to shut down protesters, or sending Department of Homeland Security teams into U.S. cities with military uniforms and military weapons and kidnapping people, throwing bags over their heads and putting them into vans. That's the kind of shit that Trump does. That's the kind of shit that he engaged in. And what happened when it backfired on him? In some cases, he would take the exact opposite position. He'd say, it's shameful how the military went into these cities, blah, 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 and blame somebody else for it. Or he just wouldn't say a fucking word. He'd just go completely silent on Twitter, pretend nothing happened, start talking about something else, or completely change the subject. This is called distraction propaganda, where you throw out some ultra-controversial subject and watch people fight over it for the next 2 weeks. Like when Trump would do something real fucked up, and he knew he fucked up, and he knew that his approval rating was sinking hard. Then he'd bring up the trans bathroom debate. He'd say, I don't think it's right for trans people to go into the bathroom of their choosing or whatever. And suddenly, society is embroiled neck deep in this ridiculous social argument that shouldn't even exist in the first fucking place. Let's keep reading. This is Hemant Mehta speaking. He's a Christian nationalist who attended the Capitol coup and blamed liberals for it, and thinks his never-ending defense of Trump will earn him praise from someone somewhere, not realizing that everyone who's not a member of his church just constantly mocks him for being a lunatic. Again, I don't think he really cares that much about being mocked, just like Trump. I don't think either of them really care about getting mocked that much because they both know that they have a cult following behind them who would literally die for them if they were asked to. In this case, these people's will to live is outweighed by their indoctrination. I don't know how we're going to solve the problems that we have in this country, but we're going to have to do something about it. I said this before, but I've considered like getting an army of therapists out there, you know, making therapy free for anybody and encouraging people to take advantage of that. But even me saying that, even me mentioning that, makes people like Greg Locke and people in his congregation think that I want to put them in camps. They think that me saying what I just did about offering free therapy to anybody means I want to put them in camps and force them to, like Germany in 1943, 1944. There's something broken in these people's brains. Like, we've got a big problem and it's going to have to be solved. Dizzy, hi, what do you think about Tom Hanks hosting the inauguration? What do you think Q will think because of it? My family likes Q stuff, and I guess Tom is the devil. Fascinating. I think QAnon is dying out quickly. A lot of traditional Republicans and Trump supporters who weren't necessarily Q supporters, they didn't say anything about Q. I think they were biding their time waiting to see how it played out before condemning or endorsing QAnon. But after the election, shortly after the election, a couple of weeks later, I think, the QAnon account supposedly, secretly, was up for sale for like $1 million or something like that. You could buy the QAnon like website and account and everything else for $1 million. I don't know how true that is. It was just a rumor. It's just a rumor. There's no supporting evidence to prove that it was up for sale, but that's what I heard. Anyways, I have a suspicion that Q is going to go silent now, that everything that they've said and done has been proven false. That's my guess. As far as Tom Hanks goes, he seems to be just like an honest guy who's fairly left-wing and interested in, you know, trying to move society in a more progressive direction. So that's what he seems like to me. I don't know much about the guy. Maybe he does have hateable qualities. Who fucking knows? But QAnon likes to build conspiracies about everything. So what happens when a cult disappears, basically? What happens when the leader disappears? Like, what happens when the leader is proven wrong? We can look to historical examples of that happening and see what happened. Like, what did the congregation do afterward? A good example, actually, is the Branch Davidians, the Waco, Texas cult, with David Koresh and everything. I just talked about them recently on my main channel. They switched between different groups and different leaders like 1 billion times over the years. They switched between the Davidians, the Rod, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Branch Davidians, just a bunch of different denominations. What was happening, generally speaking, is there would be a disagreement within the church, or somebody would make a prediction about the end or something like that. And the people who disagreed would split off into a new group, and they would create a new name and everything else. Another person would make a prediction about the end, the new leader would. It would fail, and the group would split off again. It kept going like that until it was a really small group on Mount Carmel, their compound near Waco, Texas. And then all that shit went down with the FBI. So anyway, usually what happens is when there's a power vacuum, somebody fills that power vacuum. Other leaders stand up and take charge. Other generals or deacons involved in the movement will step in and fill that void. When the U.S. went into Iraq, took out Saddam Hussein, who filled the power vacuum? That power vacuum's there. It's going to be filled by somebody. ISIS came in and filled that power vacuum in that case. Power vacuums are a bad thing. So right now there's a power vacuum within the QAnon movement, and we're going to see it filled eventually. There will most likely always be QAnon supporters. Almost guaranteed. They will be around forever. I estimate there are between 2 and 3 million of them. That's just my personal estimate, and I don't have a whole lot of data to back that up. It's just, you know, studying the stuff for as long as I have and reading about all of it. That's kind of the conclusion I've come to. Take it with a grain of salt. But Jehovah's Witnesses only have 8.5 million members. And QAnon is between 2 and 3 million. That's pretty fucking big. Seriously, that's fucking big. There will always be a QAnon believer out there. Even if QAnon himself, even if Q himself came out and said, this is me, this is who I am, I made it all up, it's all a lie, somebody won't be able to come to grips with that fact and will continue believing it anyways. Start making up conspiracies that that person isn't actually Q, they're lying and stuff like that. Precious81, hello, I'm listening and playing Skyrim. I wonder if the cult of QAnon will dwindle or strengthen after Biden-Harris officially takes office. Q has made a lot of claims that were either going to be proven to be correct or incorrect after the election, after inauguration. Of course, depending on who is inaugurated. In this case, Biden is going to be inaugurated, and that proves Q's claims completely 100% wrong. So after this, I think Q is going to dwindle heavily. They've been proven wrong, and there's really no coming back from that for Q. Although, as any cult leader can do, Q could just come out and pretend he never made those claims. He could just come out and ignore it, just never address it. Just continue making claim after claim, just brand new ones. That's what the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses does. That's what Trump does. They pretend that they were never wrong and just go about their business. They never answer any questions or anything like that. That's probably what Q will do, and they will continue to gain followers. But the fact that a lot of QAnon accounts and Trump supporters' accounts have been removed from basically every form of social media at this point, that means that their recruitment arm has been heavily truncated. It's going to be very difficult for them to gain influence again now that they've been removed, essentially, from public society. They can stand on street corners and scream all they want, but it's not going to get them anywhere. They're going to be viewed as the fucking nutcases that they are now.